Rosaire LaBelle had never experienced such a sound. It pierced through her dreams of warmth and security, crashing her back to the reality of her situation. For days, the news and weather agencies warned of the storm that was coming, but she remained unaware and unprepared. The wailing screech, such an unfamiliar and terrifying shriek. What could make such a noise? Alone, unarmed, and barely strong enough to sit straight, she unzipped the tent. Still wrapped in her sleeping bag, Rosaire peered from behind the corner of the door flap. She looked across the small clearing, illuminated by an eerie moving glow, cast by a full moon, hidden behind thick fog and gusts of dancing snow. There was no sign of what made the terrifying sound. It must be an injured animal, a victim of a brutal attack. Rosaire sat down, huddled inside of her sleeping bag stuffed with blankets. Shivering, she drew the string around her neck to seal in the heat. She silently froze in place for several minutes, listening for any sign that the wild animal was nearby. Hopeful but unsure of whether the vicious carnivore had moved on, her focus drifted into the white noise of nature. She noticed the tent poles creaking from the unexpected snow. She looked at how it made the center of the tent sag. Piles of her belongings were stacked in each corner. Luckily now they served as pillars that held up each wall. Dips in the canvas touched the top of her head. How much snow is above me? She could feel the heavy roof bounce above her as the winds raged and eased. Anxiety flooded her. She fidgeted inside of the weatherized blanket cocoon, unsure of whether she should stay put or make a run for it. Flashes of Rosaire's last time in town terrorized her. She went to a social worker for help, but was blocked in a room and interrogated by a police officer. The stares and fingers pointing, laughing and taunting as she hugged the roads and sidewalks. She tried to be invisible, but everyone she passed snapped their heads in disgust. Groups of people chattered and snickered in her direction. Mothers hid their children behind their waists while passing along the walkways. The wind whistled and abruptly brought her attention back to Mother Nature. She couldn't remember a time she had felt this cold or been more afraid. The ghastly sound echoed in her head, and she mustered the courage to return to town. It would be better to face public humiliation than to freeze in the woods with a hungry beast. Her mind wandered to thoughts of her escape from the town. The council banned sleeping in public, and everyone harassed anyone who looked unhoused. At this point, she was willing to turn herself in as homeless, just to survive whatever was in these woods. Her conversation last spring with town officials haunted her as she pushed onward. "Miss LaBelle, where do you live?" asked the old scruffy white-bearded officer. Rosaire sat hunched over her lap. "C'est moi." "Well, am I under arrest, officer?" she asked under her breath. "Speak up," said the officer. "I live with friends and am not supposed to give out their address," she blurted. "So, you are homeless, Miss Label. Is that what you're telling me?" "No, I have a place to live." "What's the address?" the officer pried. "I can't give out that information." "Sounds like you don't have a home. We can't let people without homes live here on the streets," he continued. "See, the town banned homeless folks like yourself from using our streets and abandoned buildings. They decided that you all damage and steal everyone's stuff." Rosaire looked at the name on the officer's badge. "Am I under arrest, Officer Leon?" "No, not yet. But we heavily patrol all around the town and the outskirts. If you are living out there, we will find you. You simply cannot live outside in this town. This is your only warning. I know that you are homeless. You know how." Officer Leon paused and leaned in slowly. He lowered his voice, "Because you smell like shit and have all of that stuff with you." He pointed at her grocery bags and garbage bags, filled with her most precious belongings. I have a place to stay. I'm not homeless. I was just walking to do laundry and grocery shopping down at the plaza. Tears rolled down Rosaire's cheeks. Well, if you were homeless, I could help you with your laundry expenses and give you some food, chimed the social worker. After all, that is what you originally came into my office for, was it not? Rosaire squirmed in her seat, panicked by the unexpected interrogation. I came to ask for food and help finding a better place to live. I didn't say that I had no place to stay. Oh, I see. Well, you can fill out our application for food and rental aid. We need your current address, phone number, and email address. You also will need to provide copies of your photo ID, bank statements, copies of utilities in your name, proof of your current residence, and proof of income. Explain to social. I don't have any of those things. What am I supposed to do? Rosaire asked. Old Leon and the social worker laughed. Well, if you weren't homeless, you'd have those things, wouldn't you? Snarked the officer. So, there's no help for me here, is there? Officer Leon chuckled. No, girl. In this world, the only help there is what we do for ourselves. People need to be held accountable for their own problems and actions. Besides, I know you're lying. We will find you and place you in a camp downstate. I promise you that. You can make it easier on yourself and go now. Go now? I can leave. She squirmed in her seat and gathered her bags around her legs. I want to leave and go home right now. Go now, meaning we can take you to the camp downstate, where the homeless are placed. Old Leon chuckled under his breath. So, are you placing me under arrest? Rosaire froze. No, you are not under arrest. But if we find you sleeping outside, you will be. You're free to go. Leon stood and moved his chair from the doorway. Rosaire turned sideways to slip past the two of them, ashamed of the stench she would make them smell as she passed by. I mean it, girl. Nobody can live homeless in this town. I will find you. You need to go somewhere else. We'll give you a ride. Leon said again, this time with a different, softer tone in his voice. After Rosaire left, she walked several miles to set up her camp outside the city limits and out of sight of everyone. For months she built. She made a fire pit with rocks. She stacked piles of wood from the surrounding forest next to the tent. Rosaire made a toilet from a discarded 5-gallon bucket, found near a little stream. She built a shower with a bunch of black contractor bags that heated the water in the sun. She made a rope from plastic shopping bags and tied the shower to a tree branch. She built a camp. No, she built a home. A home from nothing, but none of that mattered now. A freezing blast of air chilled Rosaire to the bone as she unzipped the sleeping bag. The frigid air penetrated through every layer of clothing, draped upon her frail, rigid skeleton. The tent shook from gusts of wind. Hunched over and shaking, she struggled to squeeze her feet, hidden inside of a thick accumulation of socks, into oversized men's boots. Her hands were lost within layers of mittens and socks, making the laces impossible to tie. Rosaire staggered to the tent's opening, tripping over piles of her belongings. Her head bumped against the ceiling, and it bounced with great force, knocking her down to the ground. She slid down the cooking pile. Pots and pans clanked, papers and wrappers crinkled. Worried, the woodland predator heard her struggle. She stuck her arm through the partial opening to unzip the door in a swift, swooping motion. She glanced around for the last time, looking for any sign of what caused the terrifying noise before she trenched into the knee-deep, untouched snow. The wind blew small, icy snowflakes, stinging her skin and eyes. She closed them and heard the tent door flapping while she repelled the wild flakes with her lashes. The gusts subsided, and she tried to close the tent door, but her two pillowy hands could not grip the zipper. She pulled as far as her poor grasp allowed, but the zipper didn't budge. Rosaire tried again but was startled by a loud crack and the snaps of tree branches that came from behind a line of snow-burdened and bent birches. A powerful gust of wind howled through the mountainside, leading a cloud of white snowflake soldiers to encircle her, bombing her face. She shielded her eyes with her arm and headed toward the clearing's edge. The snow army followed like hungry gnats in the summer, gnawing at her exposed skin. Knowing the area well, she navigated an inconspicuous path she used daily. The evergreen canopy blocked the glowing clouds from the snow-covered ground, and darkness surrounded her. She pushed forward. The edge of town was only half a mile away. With each step, her body grew colder. The fresh snow drifted now up to her waist, and it was difficult to traverse. From what she could see, there were no signs of what made the haunting screams. Dread lingered in the hallowed pit of her empty stomach. It growled louder than the wind. Rosaire moved as quickly as her small body could carry the heavy snow-clad wardrobe. Her mouth was dry as sand. She licked her stinging lips. Her tongue failed to soothe the rough, dry windburn. She shoved a handful of snow into her mouth. It melted into smooth, sweet water that eased her immediate thirst and hunger pains, but spread the icy coldness into her gut. She couldn't remember such a cold night, especially this time of year. What was the time and temperature? As hard as she tried, she failed to pick up the pace. Her boots were heavy from compacted snow, growing with each step. Ahead was a narrow bend in the path, lined with trees and brambles that grew tightly together. Tonight, it was a 10-foot snowdrift with no way around. How on earth do I get around that? A ghastly siren pierced the forest. The monstrous screech pierced her soul. She trembled. Wide-eyed, she spun slowly around. Her heart pounded and she grabbed her chest as if to hold in the sound. Snow-covered shrubs and branches surrounded her in every direction, including up. The wail was close, but where did it come from? Rosaire was trapped in this tightly bound path, without room to run. Having at least another quarter-mile of thick forest to navigate, she tried her hardest to sprint through the lowest side of the towering drift. Her shoes, unrecognizable white boulders, now 50-pound ankle weight, such enormous burdens to heave through the blizzard's remnants. Rosaire's body jerked from side to side, but her feet barely moved. Her violent attempts to flee freed her feet from the snowball shackles. The compressed snow was fused to several layers of socks, which also peeled from her feet. She picked up speed, but the cold was not to be outrun. The path's head trailed off from the forest to a clearing next to a small creek where moose and deer are frequented. On the other side, there was a thin wall of brambles and shrubs, then the road. Rosaire trampled across the partially frozen stream and emerged onto the unplowed, untraveled road, soaked from feet to breasts. She gasped as she turned to walk towards the town. Standing less than 10 feet away was the silhouette of a figure in the road. It was another person. Did they hear the noise and come to investigate? Rosaire waved her arms as much as she could under her frozen clothes. The movements were barely noticeable, but felt like they were above her head. As she inched closer to the figure, it became clear that it was a woman bundled up for the weather. She opened her mouth and tried to ask for help. The terrifying screech, the one she was trying to escape, was her only sound. The figure remained silent and still. The other woman's face came into focus and froze Rosaire. The stranger's eyes were black, yet the face was her own. Her eyes were locked with the two hollow black voids of the stranger's familiar face. Rosaire's body went limp, and her vision faded into blackness. Snow began to fall heavily and continued for the late November nor'easter. The storm lasted 3 days and produced over 3 feet of snow. Some areas saw over 6 feet. Those areas didn't get plowed. They were left unattended and saw more snow by the time the late spring thaw arrived. Rosaire LaBelle was found by a local on an ATV in late July. Old Leon was the responding officer and sat beside Miss LaBelle until the other officers arrived. He looked at her. "I knew you were lying." He shook his finger at her. "I told you that you cannot live homeless in this town. You just can't survive out here. Mother Nature gets angry in the winter. She's brutal, as you well know." He continued his lecture to the dead corpse rotting next to the creek. "You really should have gone downstate like I said. It's a hell of a lot warmer down there. You would have stood a chance." He wiped away his tears before the other officers arrived, but to this day, he still wonders why she and so many others refused his help and chose this as their ending. Dear Aunt Estella, hi. I hope you're doing awesome. I have to tell you about something that's happening at school, and it's kind of a big deal, at least for me. We're having a writing contest, and the winner gets a trophy and a gift card to the bookshop, which is like the best thing ever. When Mrs. Logan first told us about it, I was super excited because I really want that gift card. But then, I don't know. I started feeling like maybe I shouldn't even try. There's this girl in my class, Emma, and she's, like, really good at writing. Her mom is an idiot, don't know if I spelled that right. People working in newspaper. So she is telling she will be the winner. It's like she's already a professional or something. I bet whatever she writes is going to be so amazing, and I'll just be like, oh well, never mind. It's really not fair because I really, really want to do it, but I'm scared I'm not good enough. What if my story isn't any good and everyone thinks it's silly? I keep thinking about it, and it's making me so nervous. I don't want to mess up, but I don't want to quit either. I wish I could just feel as confident as Emma does. I thought maybe you could help me. Do you have any ideas on what I can write? I know you'll tell me it's okay to be nervous, and that I should try anyway. You always know how to make me feel better, and I could really use some of your advice right now. I miss you a lot. I can't wait to hear back from you. Can you visit soon? I know Mom doesn't like it when you come, but we can go to the park. Then you don't have to fight with her. B2do. Mom and Dad are acting really weird. I overheard them talking about a bad news. Mom is crying all the time this week, and I think they are hiding something from me. Dad barely takes Max out for a walk and asks me to clean up all his poops in the garden. Max is growing really old and slow. Baby Robin is no help at all. When I ask them for help with a story, they just ignore me. Mom is asking me who I am writing to. If they aren't gonna tell me, I am not going to tell them. Love. Lydia. Thank you so much for your encouragement. It really made me feel better. At least one person believes in me. Now I'm totally determined to win, no matter what. I am already thinking about what I want to buy with it. I have to beat Emma. Her mom said she'd publish Emma's story in her magazine if she wins. And it's just so unfair. Then, Emma said it is not fair that I have a driver and a night chef and a cleaning lady. I'm so jealous because she can really write. But I want to prove I can do it too. It is more than the gift card now. I'm going to write the best story ever. Emma doesn't stand a chance this time. B2W, Mom shouted at me when I asked her to take me to the bookshop. I am out of idea what to write. I just want to get some ideas. Can you help me? Thank you for your letter. I was thinking about what you said, but I can't do it. Baby Robin is only 5. I can't do that to him. Can you bring him back? Can you promise? But our poodle is 12 years old. Do you think you could use Max instead? The Duncan twins used to come over to play with him. Emma said they went missing. I haven't seen them in school. And Mrs. Logan said, don't ask. Max has been around for a while, so maybe it is time for him to go. I'm not sure how to do this, but my parents are away this weekend. I overheard. It is about a funeral, and some killer died in a burning house. They are so busy, so it's the perfect time to do it. I don't like Max anyway. I want the gift card more than picking up his poop every day anyway. I saw the trophy today, and it looks bigger than Max anyway. Well, what do you think? How should I do it? You were totally right. I found Mum's rat poison exactly where you said it would be, in the garage on the top shelf. It was kind of tricky to reach, and I had to use a stool, but I got it. I was so excited, but then, guess what happened? Baby Robin almost caught me. He came into the garage right when I was putting the stool back. My heart was racing, but I managed to distract him by saying we could play hide and seek. I can't believe I actually found it. I feel like a secret agent or something. I'm so nervous, but I know this is going to work out, especially with your help. I mixed it with eggs before pouring it into Max's food. It looks so blended together. Thanks for being so smart and knowing where everything is. I'll let you know how it goes. B2DB. Mom and Dad said they found a bunch of weird stuff in your home. They won't tell me about it. Dad sent me to time out when I asked. When I sneaked down for cookies, they said the police found skulls and red candles and stars in circles in your home. Mom also said the police said they can't wash off the words on the wall, and the words were, enjoy Mom's inheritance. You selfish, bad word. I'll come for you soon. What is inheritance? I don't even know how to spell it. I have some really sad news. Our poodle Max passed away yesterday. Mom and Dad broke down completely, and the whole house feels so different without him. Abby, our babysitter, came over. I know I should feel really sad too, but honestly, I feel a bit relieved. I don't have to pick up his poop anymore, and I didn't realize how much I hated doing that until now. I feel guilty for thinking that, but it's true. Something strange happened after Max passed away, though. It was like my hands were magic or something. Suddenly, I was able to finish my short story and submit it without even thinking. It's like everything just clicked. And I was done in no time. I should probably feel bad for not being as sad as everyone else, but all I can think about is how happy I am that I got my story in before the deadline. Now I feel like I have to pretend to be sad around Mom and Dad because they're so upset. But inside, I'm just really glad I finished my story and got it submitted. Mom didn't even have time to read my story. Is that terrible? I hope I'm not a bad person for feeling this way. I think I will feel better when I get the trophy. I can see myself holding it and the gift card. I just wish Mom and Dad have some time for me. They are speaking to the police a lot. I heard them talking about missing kids found in a closet in the house. Maybe it was the Duncan twins. I heard the policeman said they were Blue and DAC Ed. Maybe you can tell me. Guess what? I made it to the finalist round. Emma did too, of course. I really want to win this and beat her. I did something bad, though. When Emma was using the bathroom at school, I locked the door from the outside. I don't know what I was doing. It was like when I was writing the story. My hands just did it magically. But not like happy magically. I was a little bit scared of myself. She was stuck for a while, and I felt worse about not feeling bad than I did about what I did. I hope this doesn't make me a terrible person. I just really want to win. No, I think wanting to win doesn't make me a terrible person. Look at the people at Olympic. They aren't bad people for winning. B. Mom and Dad, let me stay home today. Our neighbors were throwing rocks and junks at our house this morning. I saw the police pepper spraying Duncan Twins' dad. But Dad closed the curtain before I could see more. When I asked, he sent me to timeout. Nobody wants to spend time with me. I guess they will after I win the gift card and the trophy. I will show them. This is a secret between us now. The final deadline for the contest is this Friday, and I still can't think of anything to write. I'm starting to panic because I really want to win this, but my mind is just blank. I am thinking about what you said. You said you could bring baby back. Can you promise me you'll do that? I need something, anything, to help me get this done. The deadline is so close, and I'm getting scared. Please help me. BTW. Someone spat at us at the supermarket. Dad's race cars were also smashed. He was really upset about it and had the driver sacked. Too bad, because I really liked our driver. We didn't always have a driver. Only after Grandma passed that we moved into this big house and have all these nice things. Is that the only way? I really don't want to. But you are right. I really want the trophy. But I also like Baby Robin. But you are also right, because Baby Robin just cries, and everyone expects me to take care of him now. Mom and Dad are really busy because Duncan Twins' dad is throwing bricks into our house every day, and the police stopped helping us. I wonder what happened. You promise Baby Robin will come back. I am scared, but I really want to win. Guess I can put it in his cereal. You can bring him back, right? It will be like he is taking a nap, right? Okay, you promise? I will do it during breakfast. Mom and Dad are with the police again. Someone wrote something killer outside our wall. They can't be calling me, right? No, silly. No, you will bring Baby Robin back. I just put him to sleep for a little while. And Max was old. No, they weren't calling me that. Well, probably Slug Killer. Dad kills so many slugs in our garden during the summer. It was so gross, and he used to chase me and Baby Robin around with them. It was so much fun in our old house. It was smaller, and sometimes we didn't have water because we couldn't pay the bill, and sometimes Mom and Dad just watched us eat. But Mom and Dad were nicer. A lot nicer. I put it in, and not so much, and Baby Robin felt really sick in the afternoon. Abby called the ambulance and they said Baby Robin was gone. He is sleeping, like you said. Right? You are bringing him back, right? Mom slapped Abby when she saw the rat poison in the kitchen counter. I thought I put it back. I'm sure I put it back. She was so angry and sad, and she hugged me for a long time. I told her I had homework to finish. I don't want to be around her, because I want to tell her about Baby Robin. I want to tell her that he is just sleeping, and you will bring him back soon. I want to tell her that I had a strange dream holding crayons. But it is our secret. One good thing out of this very bad day, my writing magic came back. As soon as I went into my room, I was writing very fast, and 30 minutes later, I finished my story. I will submit it tomorrow. But I don't know if Mom will let me go to school. If she doesn't, I will go from the back door. I don't care. I need to win this. Thank you for always encouraging me. Love you so much. I cannot wait to show you the trophy. Guess what? I won. I won. I won. I wish I can see Emma's face. I won. Mrs. Logan phoned me because Dad and Mom asked me to stay home. She spoke to me on phone and asked me how I was feeling. I told her Baby Robin is asleep and we'll come back soon. Don't be mad, but I had to tell someone. Mrs. Logan asked if I had help. I told her you have been helping me. When are you bringing baby Robin back? The house is really quiet now. Can you bring back Max too? I am missing him too. Mrs. Logan said she will mail us the trophy and the gift card. She said she needs to speak to Dad. Can you visit soon? I want to show you the trophy. Mom has been quite sick. She woke up this morning saying someone was strangling her and yanking out her hair last night. Her neck was red and purple with finger marks and a patch of her hair is gone. Weird, and we found charcoal footprint on the floor, like from the grill during BBQ. From the front door to their bedroom. They sleep on the 3rd floor, and the white grand staircases were full of big and small black footprints. Our house also smelled like something burnt. Dad had to hire cleaners, but nobody wanted to come to our house. Dad had to clean it himself with a mop. I helped him, and we made popcorn. He cried at the microwave and said he wished we never took all of Grandma's money. He said he never needed it, and he only needed me and Robin. He even said he was sorry for not writing the story with me. He said he is very proud of me for winning. That made me feel bad. When are you bringing baby Robin back? You promised. You didn't lie to me, right? You haven't replied my last letter and I am a little bit mad. When are you bringing baby Robin back? You promised. I overheard Dad talking to Mrs. Logan. They think I am imagining things. I have been hiding your letters, and I write in secret now in my bed tent with a torch. When are you bringing baby Robin back? The trophy is arriving tomorrow. But I am scared now. Where are you? Our night chef left. So Mom was cooking lasagna last night. She made it better than the restaurants. Then she was screaming suddenly. Dad said he saw them too. They said it was a woman with a burnt face with 2 twin boys, laughing and swinging on the chandelier. Don't know how to spell. In the hall. Maybe it is the Duncan twins? But why are they in our house? The chandelier fell down, and when I came down, it was on the floor. It wasn't on fire, but the crystal and light bulbs all broken. We ordered pizza and Mom and Dad asked me to stay in bed with them. Their bed is king size and really smooth sheet. They let me pick a movie and watched with me and let me eat crisps and cookies on the bed. It felt like home for the first time since we moved into this big house. I should tell Mrs. Logan they are imagining things. The firefighters came to our house. Our house is very big, and they had to check for many hours. They said they can't find anything about the smell. But they found a big star and circle under baby Robin's bed. It was drawn with my crayons. But I didn't do it. I had a dream I did, but I didn't. I swear. It stinks like barbecue. When are you bringing baby Robin back? Why are you answering me? You promised. Mom sat me down today and told me you died. She said you took the Duncan twins, and your house was caught on fire, and the living room was burnt down. I told her it isn't true. Because you were writing to me all the time. When I showed them the letters I hid, Dad said he was calling Father Pedro from the church. Why is he calling the church? What is happening? Father Pedro came over and shaking and threw up at our front door and said he had to ask Vatican for help. What is even that? I am scared now. Tell me what is happening. I told her about Max, but I can't tell her about baby Robin. Where is baby Robin? You promised. Did you lie to me? You said baby Robin is sleeping. I don't want the trophy or the gift card or beating Emma. Who are you? What are you? Dear sweet Lydia, I'll see you all tonight. Sleep well. Aunt Estella. A single headlight creates a tunnel of visibility through the back streets of my suburb. A light downpour outside looks more like floating dust than rain. It's a good thing I know this area well enough that the void outside my limited field of view does not bother me. The darkness occasionally creeps in as the only working light blinks. I should get that fixed. Not that it matters. I am only 5 minutes from home. It is a problem for tomorrow. Right now, I want to soothe this tingle in my body with the warm safety of my bed. Who knew half a bottle would cause such a buzz? It must be because I did not eat anything. It's safe to drive home, no matter what Jerry says. His protests were left in the car park dust as I pulled away. My ears flooded with my favorite tunes. Even now, he is calling and checking in on me. He seriously needs to chill out sometimes. I steal a glance at my phone for a fraction of a second. Enough time for my entire world to change. A blur of movement splashes over the bonnet. I slam my foot hard onto the brake. The car spins 360 degrees, like the carriage on a theme park ride. The screeching sounds of metal, rubber, and bitumen merge into a terrifying symphony before a sudden silence. The only sound remaining is the gentle ticking of the engine as it settles from the panic we share. I feel the salty taste of the few chips I ate earlier rising in my throat. It mixes with bile as they attempt to evacuate from the swirling storm that is my stomach. I close my eyes to calm everything. I wonder if keeping them closed will mean never having to find out what the fuck just happened. That is not an option. But it is a nice thought for now. The pitch-black comfort at the back of my eyelids helps the universe make sense for a minute. My breathing slows, and tranquility washes over me like a gentle breeze. Given how desperate I was for bed, maybe I could sleep here. Open your fucking eyes, I whisper to myself. Reality seeps in through the cracks as I force them to peel open. It all looks like an out-of-focus shot from a cheaply made movie. My single working headlight still flickers away at irregular intervals. Only now, it illuminates something more than empty streets and misty rain. I lean forward to get a better view, but I'm wrestled backward by my seatbelt. I can make out a mass of something on the road. Maybe it is some debris or rubbish that blew into my path. People in this part of town are constantly piling junk up on the side of the street. Whatever it is, it landed right in the middle of a set of unfamiliar zebra stripes, which seems weird. There are no pedestrian crossings out here, is there? Indeed. This is just a half bottle of red playing tricks on me. Stupid Jerry always orders the strongest vino on the menu. Did it just move? I scan the lifeless mass and argue with my brain about what I might be looking at. It starts small and round, broadens out, and then narrows again. Something is caught in my throat when I realize what could be out there. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I mutter to myself as I fiddle with my seatbelt buckle. Why do these things never cooperate when you are in a rush? I shove the car door open and feel a burning sting in my knees and palms as I fall on the road. I must still be dizzy from when the car spun out. I get to my feet and stare silently at the human shape lying flat before me. Hello, I call out. Are you okay? Nothing. It is only 10 meters away, but the walk feels like a marathon. I see shoulder-length blonde hair, an oversized gray hoodie, and several plastic shopping bags upended. Milk, bread, and some random cans have emptied their contents everywhere, in a way that almost resembles a miniature landscape. Lakes of liquid push up against mountains of dough and tin. Only the color of it seems wrong. I expect to see the perfect white of dairy, but instead, I am greeted by a dark red, the same color as the Merlot Jerry had selected. It was such a nice drop. Those few glasses went down a treat. Jerry and I always have good times when we catch up. He is one of those friends that you have not seen for months. But when you do, it is like you only saw him yesterday. An overprotective type, too. The stupid prick took my keys off me because he thought I was drunk. I should not have told him I had been sinking beers after work before heading to the wine bar. He decided that meant I was too drunk to drive. The idiot didn't realize I had memorized the drink-driving ads from the 90s. 2 in the first hour and 1 every hour after. I had slurred at him. "But you just had 2 drinks in the hour we have been here," Jerry replied. "It all balances out, for fuck's sake, Jerry. Now give me my keys." I swiped them out of his hand when he stopped to take a call from his wife. I could hear my phone buzzing like a crazed fly back in the car. He was still trying to call me. Maybe I should answer. Perhaps he needs to know how this is all his fault. The stupid fucker should have tried harder to stop me from driving. Why did he allow me to get my keys back and not just shove my drunk ass into a taxi? I clutch my head with both hands, hoping to crush it as if that might make this shit show of a dream end. My breathing is out of control as I search the ground for anything other than what I am pretty sure is blood, not Merlot. The sensation sweeping every inch of my body is like the evil twin of the pleasant buzz I felt only minutes ago. "Seriously? What have you done?" I shout at myself. "Just check if they are alive. They might need an ambulance." I now have entire conversations with myself like the nutcase I am. I turn back to confront what I have been avoiding. I move at a snail's pace, still waiting for Jerry or someone to jump out from behind a bush and tell me it is all a joke. I approach the body and kneel. A cool dampness stings the scrapes on my knee. I decide not to look at whatever I have landed in. The flicking headlight casts my shadow over this poor fucker like the harbinger of death that I have become. "Hello," I say to the motionless blob. "I am so sorry. You came out of nowhere. Can I call you an ambulance?" "Nothing." "Hey, I am just going to touch your shoulder. I hope that is okay." I reach out and feel a cold, bony shoulder in my palm. I gently shake it, like I am trying to wake a baby. Nothing. "Hello," I say again. I jiggle them with a bit more force. This time, I rolled them toward me. My hands and feet slip in the mess of liquids as I stumble backward. I flail about like an injured crab before eventually falling flat, rolling over, and then covering the road in vomit. I hazard a look back at the body to see the eyes of a young woman staring back at me. Only they have no life. They hang open, unblinking. The cuts, bruises, and blood caused by Jerry letting me drive create a map of horror on her face. Fuck. What do I do? What do I do? I ask myself as I move into a ball. My arms clutched around my knees in the fetal position. Think, you idiot. Think. Fuck. This is all Jerry's fault. Just get back into the car and leave. It's not a terrible idea. I look back at my shitbox of a sedan with its single headlight. It still loses power occasionally, like it is winking at me. I think it agrees with my decision to go. I quickly assess it for any signs of damage that did not already exist. It seems fine, just as beat up as it always is. I use every ounce of strength to stand. The adrenaline pumping through my veins masks the pain of every bump and bruise of the last few minutes. I take one final look back at the person who simply tried to cross the road. "I am so sorry," I whisper. I fall back into the driver's seat and pull away. The terror that I caused behind me grows smaller. I still look forward to getting back to the safety of my bed. Anywhere would be better than here. I am never drinking with Jerry again. Fairweather skipped down Willow Lane, her uneven pigtails bouncing like springs, eyes wide with wonder at her new surroundings. The quaint houses lining the street morphed in her imagination. A thatched cottage became a gingerbread house, a brick bungalow, a dwarf's underground lair. But it was the house at the end of the lane that truly captivated her. A grand Victorian house, set away from the street, its weathered facade of red brick with black brick diamonds nearly hidden behind a riot of climbing roses and twisting vines. To Fairweather, it wasn't just a house. It was a castle frozen in time, waiting for a brave knight or a curious little girl to break its enchantment. Fairweather's eagerness to explore Willow Lane was fueled by more than just childish curiosity. At home, the air was thick with the acrid smell of her mother's cigarettes and the oppressive silence that followed her latest bad day. Fairweather had learned early on that it was better to make herself scarce when Mom retreated to her darkened bedroom, murmuring about needing to rest her nerves. The magic of the overgrown garden offered an escape from the suffocating worry that permeated every corner of their small apartment. As twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Fairweather crept closer to the iron gates. The flood of flowers whispered secrets on the evening breeze, and she could have sworn she saw faces in the gnarled tree trunks. A flicker of movement in an upstairs window caught her eye. Was it a trapped princess, or perhaps a friendly ghost? Fairweather's heart raced with possibilities, her mind already weaving tales of magic and mystery that surely dwelled within those vine-covered walls. Tanwin shuffled to his front window, drawn by an unfamiliar sound: laughter. His rheumy eyes narrowed at the sight of a young girl peering through his gate. "Nuisance," he muttered, reaching for the curtains. But something stayed his hand. The child's wide-eyed wonder stirred a long-dormant memory. For a moment, superimposed over the girl's face, he saw Rhodey as she'd been the day they'd first laid eyes on this old house. Days passed, and the girl became a fixture at his gate. Tanwin found himself watching for her, grudgingly admiring her persistence. One afternoon, as she reached through the bars to touch a particularly vibrant rose, he surprised himself by calling out, "Careful of the thorns, child." Her startled smile was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, and Tanwin felt something crack the cobnut shell around his heart. Tanwin paused at the door. "Rhodri, love, have you seen my gardening shears?" Tanwin called out, his voice echoing through the cluttered rooms. "Ah, never mind, I remember now. You always did say I'd lose my head if it weren't attached." He chuckled softly as he left his door, secateurs in hand. He shuffled up to the girl. "You can have one, if you like." He unlatched the gate for her, then patted her head, smoothing some loose hair. "What's your name, little miss?" "Lacey, but my friends call me Princess Fairweather." She curtsied. "Did you know," Fairweather chirped, her fingers gently tracing the veins of a leaf, "that the word petal comes from the Greek petalon, meaning a thin sheet?" Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Tanwin blinked, momentarily taken aback by the torrent of information from such a young mind. "Well, I'll be," he murmured, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "You remind me of someone who loved words just as much." He clipped the rose. "A rose for you, princess, from your new friend Tanwin." He bowed and swished the rose with a flourish, and handed the rose to the girl. In that moment, Fairweather felt as if she'd stepped through a looking-glass. The air seemed to shimmer around Tanwin, and in his eyes she saw reflected not her own face, but that of a beautiful woman with silver-streaked hair and laugh lines etched deeply around her eyes. It was thrilling and unsettling all at once, like standing on the edge of a fairy ring. Fairweather held her breath, afraid that speaking might shatter this strange spell. "It's useful to cut the roses so more will bloom. Has the unfortunate name of deadheading. You'd be doing us a favor by taking some." Tanwin cut another 6 roses. "For your mom, I'll get some paper to roll them." He bowed to the girl again. Rhodey will be happy to share her flowers. He smiled. Just a tick, fair maiden. The garden was a feast for the senses. The perfume of blooming jasmine mingled with the earthier scents of rich soil and sun-warmed stone. Bees hummed lazily from flower to flower, their drone punctuated by the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. Fairweather trailed her fingers along the rough bark of an ancient oak, feeling the life pulsing beneath its weathered exterior. Even the air seemed different here, cooler and somehow more alive than the stagnant atmosphere of her apartment. Fairweather twirled through Tanwin's overgrown garden, her arms outstretched as if embracing the very air. To her, each rosebush was a slumbering fairy, each gnarled tree a wise old sage. "Princess Rodri," she called out in a sing-song voice, "your loyal subject awaits an audience." She curtsied to a particularly stately, if overgrown topiary, giggling at her own game. Tanwin watched her from the porch, a ghost of a smile on his weathered face. "Someone's in a playful mood today," he said, ostensibly to Fairweather. But his gaze fixed on a point just beyond her shoulder. Fairweather nodded solemnly, playing along with what she assumed was an elaborate make-believe. In her mind, she was the brave knight, tasked with entertaining the lonely king until the spell on his queen could be broken. "Would you like to share some Earl Grey and lemon biscuits?" The girl squealed. "Shh!" Tanwin pressed a finger to his lips, eyes twinkling with secretive excitement. His tray tilted dangerously downward, splashing tea. "We mustn't disturb Rhodey's afternoon nap." He gestured back to the house. "She's not been well, and fell asleep before she could have hers. She won't mind." Fairweather tiptoed after Tanwin, her imagination painting vivid pictures of the ethereal Princess Rhodey beyond the door. Perhaps she'd be napping on a bed suspended by magic geese, surrounded by butterflies that served as her ladies-in-waiting. Each piece of overgrown paving became a magical stepping stone, each dust mote a fairy's lantern guiding their way through the garden to a stone bench. "Oh!" As she helped herself to her third biscuit, a ladybird crawled across a rose near Fairweather's ear. She launched into another explanation. "Ladybirds are beetles, you know. They are named after Mary Magdalene on account of them being red and having spots." She giggled. Tanwin nodded, his eyes misting slightly. "Indeed," he said. "Take care, some bite." Fairweather pulled her finger back, then blew the ladybird off the rose. Tanwin's eyes took on a glassy, faraway look. "Rhodey, love," he said softly, reaching out to touch Fairweather's cheek. "You've done something different with your hair." Fairweather froze, her heart pounding. She'd seen that lost expression on her mother's troubled face, but never quite so intensely. For a moment, she wasn't sure if she should play along or try to bring him back to reality. "Mr. Tanwin," she said carefully. "It's me, Fairweather. Remember?" Tanwin blinked rapidly, confusion clouding his features before recognition slowly dawned. Of course," he mumbled, withdrawing his hand. "Forgive an old man his fancies." But the incident left Fairweather with a nagging sense of unease that she couldn't quite shake. Tanwin stood slowly, his knees crackled. "Rhodey wanted me to tidy the roses. You can help if you've got time? I have to go back when the street lights light." She tapped her lips. "Mom is sleeping with Prince Valium today." "Oh, huh." Tanwin scratched his head. "Well, as long as your mom won't mind. Do you have any ogres in your garden?" "We had a gnome for a while, but he went on an adventure." "Ooh!" Tanwin led Fairweather to an unruly rosebush. Fairweather's imagination ran wild as she helped Tanwin. In her mind's eye, the thorny branches became the scaled coils of a fearsome dragon guarding the entrance to Queen Rhodey's tower. "We must be very careful," she whispered dramatically to Tanwin. If we wake the dragon, it might breathe fire and turn all the roses to ash. Tanwin chuckled, playing along with a twinkle in his eye. Ah, but you forget, brave princess, he said in a conspiratorial tone. Queen Rhodey has gifted us with magical pruning shears. One snip, and the dragon will fall into a deep slumber. As they worked, giggling and spinning ever more elaborate tales, Fairweather felt a warm glow of belonging. Here, in this enchanted garden, she wasn't just a lonely girl with a distracted mother. She was a hero on a grand adventure. Now, lass, Tanwin said, his gnarled hands demonstrating the proper way to prune a rosebush. You've got a cut, just above a leaf node. See? That's where the new growth will come from. Fairweather watched intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. Like surgery for plants, she mused. Did you know the word surgery comes from the Greek word meaning handiwork? Tanwin chuckled, shaking his head in wonder. I did not, but I'm not surprised you did. His expression softened, a faraway look in his eyes. Rhodey has the green thumb. I'm just following her instructions like any dutiful husband. Is that why you talk to the plants sometimes? Fairweather asked innocently. Are you telling them what Rhodey says to do? Tanwin's hands stilled for a moment. Something like that, lass, he said quietly. Something like that. Tanwin wiped the sweat from his brow. Fairweather beamed. You have a picture book garden. Tanwin smiled. Speaking of books, I have something to show you. As the summer sun dipped, casting long shadows across the garden, Fairweather and Tanwin sat on the old stone seat, a book of his keepsakes on his lap. As Tanwin opened the old book, a peculiar scent wafted from its pages, sweet yet somehow unpleasant, like overripe fruit. Fairweather wrinkled her nose but said nothing, too excited about the pictures inside to mention it. Tanwin flipped through the pages, pausing occasionally to adjust the small pine tree-shaped air freshener he used as a bookmark. Rhodey always loved the scent of pine, he murmured, more to himself than to Fairweather. Look at this one, Fairweather pointed excitedly. It's a fritillary butterfly. Did you know their name comes from the Latin word meaning dice box, because of their checkered pattern? Tanwin leaned in, squinting at the delicate, preserved wings. Is that so? Fascinating. He turned to Fairweather, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. And what can you tell me about this flower here? Fairweather's face scrunched. Don't know about flowers. Ah, then tell me more about butterflies. As she launched into an explanation about insect vision, Tanwin found himself transported. For a moment, it wasn't a precocious child sitting beside him, but Rhodey, her eyes alight with the same passion for knowledge, the same joy in sharing it. He set the book aside, then busied himself digging manure into a row of rose bushes. When Fairweather finished, slightly out of breath, Tanwin beamed at her. You're a marvel, lass, he said, his voice thick with emotion. A real marvel. Tanwin felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't experienced in years. Mr. Tanwin, why don't you ever go out? Don't you have friends to visit? You've been watching me for some time then. Tanwin's hands stilled, the soil and muck crumbling between his gloved fingers. Well, lass, he began slowly, sometimes, when you lose someone special, the world outside can seem too big, too empty. Fairweather nodded sagely. Like a snail without its shell, she mused. Did you know snails can sleep for up to 3 years if the weather isn't right for them? Tanwin chuckled softly, grateful for the distraction. Is that so? He took off his gloves to wipe his brow again. She wiggled in the seat enough to rattle the stone. Tanwin went pale with a cold sweat, afraid she'd asked to use his toilet. I'm 11 today, she said out of nowhere. 11, he whispered. Born on this day? The garden seemed to darken, shadows creeping in at the edges of his vision. His sweating became unbearable, his filthy gloves slipping from trembling fingers onto the grass, and his knees lost their strength. Tanwin's carefully constructed fantasy world crumbled like a sandcastle against the tide of reality. His eyes cleared of their usual fog, sharp with a pain so raw it made Fairweather stand up and back away from the old man. Rhodey, he choked out. My Rhodey died 11 years ago today. The words slipped from his lips, hanging in the air like the toll of a funeral bell, marking the death of not just Rhodey, but of the magical realm Fairweather and Tanwin had built together. Tanwin's words poured out like a long-dammed river, flowing over Fairweather in a torrent of grief and memory. He spoke of Rhodey, the real Rhodey, of her laugh like summer rain, of the cancer that withered her like frost on a rose. Fairweather listened, rooted to the spot, as her enchanted castle transformed before her eyes into what it truly was. A mausoleum of memories, preserved in dust and shadows. Reality smothered the vibrant colors of Fairweather's imagination. The wise old trees were just trees, gnarled and overgrown. The whispering roses were silent, their magic nothing more than the rustle of wind through petals. And Tanwin was just a lonely old man, lost in a castle of his own making. Fairweather felt tears spring to her eyes, mourning the loss of her fantasy world, even as she reached out to comfort the grief-stricken man. I know just the thing. Fairweather spun, her eyes focused on a pile of decorative white stones. A memorial to the Queen in a far-off land. Sunlight dappled the freshly turned earth as Tanwin and Fairweather worked side by side, their hands dirty, but their hearts lighter than they'd been in weeks. Tanwin's movements were slow but purposeful, reviving a small flower bed to the side of the bench. They collected wild bluebells from around the yard. Rhodey always loved bluebells, he said, a bittersweet smile tugging at his lips as he patted the soil around the delicate flowers. Fairweather, her face scrunched in concentration, carefully arranged a circle of white stones around a young sycamore that had grown wild at the side of the bed. For protection, she explained, catching Tanwin's skeptical glance. And remembrance. Ah, it seems our adventure is at an end, Tanwin said. Fairweather followed his gaze to the flickering streetlight. It wasn't the fairy tale ending she'd once imagined, but as she watched a butterfly alight on one of Rhodey's favorite champagne-colored roses, Fairweather realized that reality, with all its messy, beautiful complexity, could be just as magical as any story she could invent. As twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Tanwin shuffled back into the house, cradling the bouquet of fresh roses originally meant for Fairweather's mother. The familiar lament of floorboards creaking beneath his feet echoed through rooms long neglected. He approached the mantelpiece where Rhodey's favorite vase sat amidst a sea of dust and memories. The musty air caught in his throat as he carefully lifted the crisp, brittle roses from the lead crystal. Their once vibrant petals now faded and curled, much like the memories they represented. With trembling hands, Tanwin placed the refreshed vase beside Rhodey, clearing a patch of pine tree-shaped air fresheners. The heady perfume cut through the stagnant air. It was as if life itself had breached the fortress of grief he'd built around himself. Tanwin's gnarled fingers traced Rhodey's hair, tucking a loose strand gently back in place. "Oh, Rhodey," he said to the corpse of his wife, no louder than the rustle of petals settling. "You would love her." He leaned forward, pressing his lips to her skull in a tender kiss. He slipped a champagne-colored rose into her shrunken reddish-black fingers. "For you, my queen." As he straightened, Tanwin's gaze swept across the room. Dust motes danced in the fading light. The clash between the sweet fragrance of new roses and the musty odor of disuse and rot suddenly seemed unbearable. With a determined set to his jaw, Towan hobbled to the kitchen. The screech of long unused hinges pierced the silence as he opened the cabinet under the sink. "Well, old girl," he said, a hint of his old humor creeping into his voice. "Seems we've let things go a bit, haven't we?" As night fell, the soft swish of the duster and the lemony tang of cleaner mingled with the scent of roses and artificial pine. Slowly, methodically, Tanwin cleared away the cobwebs of the past, making room for new growth, new memories. The house, like its owner, was awakening from a long slumber. The sky had deepened to a dusky blue, the last remnants of sunlight slipping behind the horizon. It was that fleeting hour between evening and night when headlights flickered on and painted long, ghostly streaks of light on the asphalt. The highway hummed with the steady rhythm of cars rushing past, each driver eager to reach their destination before darkness fully set in. Inside the SUV, the family settled into the familiar rhythms of a long drive, the interior lit by the soft glow of the dashboard and the occasional passing streetlight. The father kept his eyes on the road, focusing on the steady flow of taillights ahead. His wife, cradling her growing belly, leaned back in her seat, one hand resting protectively over her bump. She was tired but content, lost in thoughts of the baby on the way, already imagining the new life that would soon join their family. In the back seat, Lucy, their 9-year-old, was half asleep, lulled by the gentle motion of the car, while her little sister, Ava, clutched her stuffed bunny and stared sleepily out the window, where the landscape blurred into dark, indistinct shapes. "Are we almost there?" Lucy mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "Almost, sweetheart," her father said, glancing back in the mirror. "Just a little bit longer." The mothers smiled at their girls, feeling the baby's faint kicks as if reminding her that they were all together. But the serene moment shattered when a sedan, dark blue and moving erratically, suddenly appeared in the rearview mirror. The vehicle was speeding, darting in and out of lanes, as if the driver was trying to escape the weight of her own impatience. The driver, a middle-aged woman with frazzled nerves, was desperate to make up lost time. She had been stuck behind slower traffic, her anxiety bubbling over, and now she saw an opening, too small, too tight, but just enough to tempt her into one last reckless maneuver. She jerked the wheel and surged forward, attempting to overtake the SUV in a flash of poor judgment and impatience. She squeezed into the narrow gap, cutting sharply in front of the SUV, her tires barely skimming the shoulder. The father saw the sedan swerve but had no time to react. He slammed on the brakes, but the SUV skidded, fishtailing as the sedan's rear clipped its front end. The impact was sudden and vicious, throwing the SUV sideways across the road. The father fought to regain control, but it was no use. The vehicle slid toward the edge of the highway, tires screaming against the pavement, before the SUV tipped and rolled violently into a ditch. Inside, the world turned sideways. The cabin was thrown into chaos as the SUV slammed onto its side, the impact jarring everyone violently against their restraints. Airbags deployed with a deafening pop, filling the air with a smoky, chemical haze. The father grunted as his shoulder collided with the window, pain shooting through his arm. He was left dangling from his seatbelt, struggling to catch his breath, disoriented by the sudden shift from normalcy to nightmare. Beside him, his wife clung to her belly, instinctively shielding her unborn child as she was tossed against the door. She gasped, feeling a sharp, searing pain ripple through her abdomen, fear flooding her senses. She tried to steady herself, but the weight of the vehicle pressed against her, making every movement feel heavy and painful. Her first thought was of her daughters, and she twisted in her seat, her voice tight and panicked. "The girls," she cried, eyes straining to see into the back seat through the haze of the wreckage. In the back, Lucy was hanging upside down, suspended by her seatbelt. Her head throbbed where it had slammed into the ceiling, and she could taste blood where she had bitten her lip. She looked over at Ava, who was trapped in her car seat, crying loudly, her little face pale and streaked with tears. Ava clutched her stuffed bunny tightly, as if it could somehow make everything right again. "Mommy!" Ava screamed, her voice quivering and small. "I'm scared." Lucy reached out, her arm trembling, trying to comfort her sister. "It's okay, Ava. We're okay." But Lucy's own voice was fraught with terror. She looked around at the shattered glass, the crumpled metal, and felt the terrifying helplessness of the moment. Above them, the SUV groaned under its own weight, the metal frame creaking ominously, as if it might tip further at any second. The sedan, after clipping the SUV, spun out of control, tires screeching against the pavement as it careened headfirst into a brick wall on the roadside. The front end crumpled instantly, glass and metal exploding in every direction. The driver, thrown violently forward, felt the crushing force of the impact as the airbag deployed too late to protect her from the brunt of the collision. She slumped against the steering wheel, dazed and bleeding, her vision swimming with pain, and the harsh, flickering light of her car's damaged headlights. She blinked, trying to clear her head, but all she could see was the SUV lying on its side, a mangled silhouette against the dimming evening sky. The faint sound of crying children drifted through the shattered windshield, and the weight of what she had done settled on her like a crushing burden. She had been in a hurry, so much of a hurry that she hadn't stopped to think. Now she was trapped in her own wreckage, helplessly watching the consequences of her recklessness unfold in front of her. Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer with each passing second. Red and blue lights flashed against the darkening sky, painting the scene in a surreal, strobe-like glow. Firefighters and paramedics rushed onto the scene, their shouts and the crunch of boots on gravel filling the tense silence. They scrambled down the embankment toward the overturned SUV, flashlights cutting through the dimness as they assessed the damage. A firefighter pried open the rear door, the twisted metal screeching in protest. He reached in carefully, unbuckling Ava from her car seat and lifting her out. Ava clung to him, still clutching her bunny, her sobs softening as he whispered reassurances. Lucy was next, helped out gently, her small frame shaking as she was wrapped in a warm, reflective blanket. "You're so brave," the paramedic told her, his voice kind but firm. "We're going to take care of you and your family." The mother winced as she was pulled from the wreckage, every movement sending fresh jolts of pain through her body. She held her belly protectively, whispering silent prayers for her unborn child as they lifted her onto a stretcher. She reached for her husband's hand, gripping it tightly as they were separated, both of them exchanging a look of shared fear and relief. The father, the last to be rescued, stumbled slightly as he was helped up. He scanned the chaotic scene, his eyes darting between his daughters, his wife, and the wrecked sedan across the road. Relief washed over him as he saw his family being tended to, but the fear lingered. An unshakable, gnawing worry about what might still be wrong, unseen beneath the surface. Across the road, the driver of the sedan was pulled from her vehicle, her legs unsteady as she was helped to sit on the curb. She watched the family she had nearly destroyed, her guilt as palpable as the blood trickling from her forehead. She had only been trying to get ahead, to beat the darkness that was falling over the highway, but now the darkness felt absolute, settling into her bones. The damage was done, and no amount of regret could rewind the seconds that had changed everything. The scene buzzed with a chaos of flashing lights, voices, and the low, rhythmic hum of engines idling in the background. Above, the sky was fully dark now, a deep inky black, broken only by the harsh glare of emergency lights and the faint distant glow of city lights on the horizon. The road, once a mundane path home, was now a battlefield strewn with wreckage, the lives of everyone involved forever altered by a moment's impatience, a split-second decision that spiraled into tragedy. As the paramedics worked, the family held on to one another, shaken but alive, the weight of the crash settling in but their grip on each other firm. The mother rested a hand on her belly, feeling the faintest flutter of movement, a fragile reassurance amid the chaos. They would heal, eventually. But the scars of this night, painted against the dim glow of fading headlights, would linger long after the wreckage was cleared, and the road returned to its usual, unremarkable flow.